The United States of America, the most powerful military force in the history of human civilization, has spent over $200 billion, fired more than 11,000 munitions, destroyed Iran's navy, obliterated its air defenses, killed its supreme leader, and burned through a quarter of its entire Tomahawk cruise missile stockpile in barely a month, and it still cannot open a strait that is 21 miles wide. That is not a typo. 21 miles. The distance most people drive to work in the morning. The most powerful country on Earth has thrown everything it has at this problem, and the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. 1/5 of the world's oil supply remains locked inside the Persian Gulf. Oil is above $100 a barrel. Gas prices are surging. Inflation is climbing back toward levels not seen since the Biden administration. And even if every gun went silent tomorrow, even if Iran surrendered this afternoon, the oil shock that is about to hit America will take months to arrive, months to peak, and months to fade. The damage is already done. The shockwave is already moving, and nobody is ready for what comes next. If you care about your money, your gas prices, your grocery bill, and the value of every dollar in your savings account, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. Because what I am about to break down is not being explained anywhere on mainstream news. They are showing you the bombs. I am going to show you the bill. Let me start with why America cannot open the strait. This is the part that the Trump administration apparently did not understand before they launched this war, and that every single president before Trump, going back to Jimmy Carter, understood perfectly. The Strait of Hormuz is 54 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. The shipping lanes that tanker ships must travel through are so narrow there is only room for 2 of them, one in each direction, each barely 2 miles across. Both sides of the strait are flanked by rough, mountainous Iranian terrain full of caves, bunkers, and tunnels. Iran does not need to physically block the strait. It does not need a navy. It does not need an air force. It does not need any of the things that America has spent billions of dollars destroying over the last month. All Iran needs to do is fire a drone at a tanker ship every now and then, launch a mine into the shipping lane every few days, attack 1 vessel per week. That is enough to create an atmosphere of fear that leads insurance companies to refuse coverage and captains to refuse passage. No insurance means no cargo. No cargo means no oil. No oil means the global economy starts choking. Before this war, Iran was estimated to possess approximately 50,000 Shahed 136 drones with an operating range of about 1,500 kilometers. You can sink every Iranian warship. You can destroy every missile launcher. You can kill every general. None of that eliminates 50,000 drones that can be launched from deep inside Iran's mountainous interior, hundreds of kilometers from the coast, well beyond the reach of any ground force America is willing to deploy. Bombs cannot change geography, and geography is what controls Hormuz. This is why every president before Trump hesitated to attack Iran directly. Not because they were weak, because they understood that Iran's real weapon was never its military. It was its address. The country sits on top of the single most important energy choke point on the planet, and there is no way to take that advantage away without a full-scale ground invasion that would make Iraq look like a warm-up exercise. The Trump administration apparently believed they could destroy Iran's ability to close the strait through overwhelming air power before Iran actually managed to do it. That gamble has failed, and now America is trapped. If you are starting to understand the scale of this problem, hit the like button and keep watching, because the economic damage is where this gets truly frightening. Every single day, the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. 1/5 of the global supply of oil and liquefied natural gas stays locked off from the market. That supply comes collectively from Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, and the UAE. Some of these countries, like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, have pipeline alternatives that can divert a portion of their own supply around the strait. But Iraq, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar have no alternative routes at all. Their entire energy exports are hostage to this 21-mile passage. The International Energy Agency has already labeled this the largest oil supply shock ever on record. Not since the 1973 Arab oil embargo. Not since the 1979 Iranian Revolution. Not since the Gulf War in 1990. Ever. On record. The largest in history. Oil has risen from approximately $60 a barrel before the war to over $100 today. That is a 40% increase in the baseline cost of energy for every economy on Earth. And here's the math that translates directly into your wallet. The general economic guideline that most economists use is that every $10 increase in the price of a barrel of oil eventually adds 0.3 to 0.4 percentage points to overall inflation. Oil has risen roughly $40 since the war began. That translates to approximately 1.2 to 1.6 percentage points added to inflation once the effects work through supply chains over the coming weeks and months. Before the war, inflation in America was running at approximately 3.5%. Add 1.2 to 1.6 points on top of that, and you are looking at inflation climbing back above 4%, potentially reaching 5%. If the strait remains closed through the end of April and oil reaches $140, which Oxford Economics considers a realistic scenario, inflation could climb back towards 6%. That is where it was in 2023, during the Biden administration. The exact level the Trump administration promised voters it would eliminate. And here is the part that most people have not thought through. Even if the war ended today, the oil shock does not end today. The damage has a tail that stretches months into the future. When the strait eventually reopens, it will take weeks for the Gulf states to restart their mothballed oil and gas production. It will take additional weeks for the world's tanker fleet to reposition back into the Gulf, since most tankers that were outside the strait when the war began have already moved on to other routes and other markets. It will then take more weeks for the crude to reach refineries, largely across Asia, that have similarly been shut down and need time to come back online. All in all, even after the fighting stops, it will take at least 4 months for the global oil and gas market to return to anything resembling normal. 4 months of elevated oil prices, 4 months of supply disruption, 4 months of inflationary pressure building on top of an economy that was already stretched thin. And that is the optimistic scenario, because there is one piece of damage that does not get fixed in 4 months. Qatar's Ras Laffan liquefied natural gas facility is one of the most important energy installations on the planet. It produces nearly 1/5 of the entire global supply of liquefied natural gas, LNG. An Iranian missile destroyed approximately 17% of its total capacity. That is equivalent to roughly 3% of the world's entire LNG supply wiped out in a single strike. According to Qatar's energy ministry, full repairs will take between 3 and 5 years. 3 to 5 years, not months. Years. The global LNG market will be operating with a structural deficit for half a decade because of one missile strike in a war that was supposed to be quick and decisive. If this is changing how you understand this war, share this video right now. Send it to someone who still thinks this is just a conflict happening far away. It is not far away. It is inside their gas tank, their electric bill, their grocery receipt, and their retirement account. Now let me show you the 3 options that Trump has left. This is where the situation goes from bad to genuinely terrifying. Option 1, negotiate. The problem is that Iran holds the leverage. They control the strait. Any negotiation happens on their terms, not America's. Iran is reportedly demanding recognition of its rights, war reparations, and binding guarantees against future attacks. The new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, had his father, his mother, his wife, and his son killed by American and Israeli strikes during this war. He was reportedly injured himself. He is not in a negotiating mood. Any deal that Trump accepts will almost certainly look like a defeat. The war will have cost hundreds of billions of dollars and depleted irreplaceable weapons stockpiles. It will have killed 13 American service members, and the end result will be concessions to the country America attacked. Option 2. Walk away. Declare victory and leave. The problem is that walking away does not reopen the strait. Iran can simply keep it closed indefinitely. Oil stays high. Inflation keeps climbing. The global economy keeps deteriorating. Trump gets blamed for all of it while insisting the war is over, even as the economic consequences worsen every week. This option is politically suicidal heading into midterm elections in November. Option 3. Escalate. Send ground forces to try and force the strait open, or seize strategic assets to create bargaining leverage. This is the option that appears increasingly likely, and it is the one that should concern every single taxpayer in America. The military options being discussed include seizing Karg Island, a small island off southwestern Iran that handles more than 90% of Iran's crude oil exports. In theory, capturing it would cut off 40% of the Iranian government's revenue and create leverage for negotiations. In practice, the island is within range of Iranian artillery from the mainland, and within range of drones from anywhere in the country. A battle for the island has a high probability of destroying the oil infrastructure on it, which would remove Iran's oil from the global market entirely, and push oil prices even higher. The Trump administration has been so alarmed by the oil shock that they have actually lifted US sanctions on some Iranian oil to keep it flowing to global markets and cushion the lost supply from other Gulf states. Seizing Karg would reverse that completely and make the oil crisis worse, not better. Other options include seizing disputed islands within the strait itself, like Abu Musa and the Greater and Lesser Tunb Islands that Iran took from the UAE in 1971. Controlling these islands could allow the deployment of short-range air defenses to protect tanker traffic. But even that would not prevent Iran from continuing to bombard the strait with drones launched from deep in their interior. The most ambitious option being discussed is attempting to seize sections of Iran's southern coastline itself. Iran's coastline along the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman stretches more than 2,400 kilometers. That is the distance from New York City to Houston. Securing enough of it to neutralize the Hormuz threat would require a combined arms ground campaign of a scale America has not undertaken since Iraq. To put the scale in context, the 2003 invasion of Iraq required approximately 300,000 troops for the initial invasion and a peak occupation force of 160,000. Iraq is roughly 1/4 the geographic size of Iran, with less than 1/3 of the population. Adjusted proportionally, a comparable operation in Iran would require over 1 million soldiers for invasion and at least 560,000 for occupation. That is comparable to the peak American force in Vietnam in 1968. It would almost certainly require reinstating the draft. None of these options are good. All of them are expensive. All of them are risky. And here is the financial reality that connects every single one of them. It does not matter which option Trump picks. Every single path leads to more money printing. Negotiate? The damage is already done. Hundreds of billions spent. Stockpiles depleted. Oil market disrupted for months. The debt is already added. The money printer is already required to finance it. Walk away? The strait stays closed. Oil stays high. Inflation climbs. Emergency stimulus packages become politically necessary. Energy subsidies. Gas price relief. Economic stabilization measures. All paid for with debt. All financed by printed money. Escalate? Ground operations cost multiples of air campaigns. A $200 billion funding request becomes $400 billion, $500 billion, or more. Weapons manufacturing ramps up on emergency defense contracts that will take years to fulfill, all paid for with debt, all financed by printed money. Every road leads to the same destination: more borrowing, more debt, more currency debasement. This is not speculation. This is arithmetic. The United States already has $36 trillion in national debt. It already had a $9 trillion refinancing wall hitting in 2026 before the war started. The war has now added hundreds of billions more on top of that. And the oil shock is about to add inflationary pressure that makes the existing debt even harder to service because the Federal Reserve cannot cut rates when inflation is accelerating. If the Fed cannot cut rates, the government pays higher interest on its debt. Higher interest costs mean bigger deficits. Bigger deficits mean more borrowing. More borrowing means more bonds issued. And when there are not enough buyers for those bonds, the central bank steps in and buys them with money it creates from nothing. That is the money printer. That is currency debasement. And that is what is coming, regardless of what happens on the battlefield. Now, let me connect this directly to your money. This is not abstract. This hits every single person watching this video. If you hold cash in a savings account, the purchasing power of that cash is about to get eroded faster than it has been in years. Inflation climbing back toward 5 or 6%, while your savings account pays 2%, means you are losing 3 to 4% of your real wealth every year. And that is before you factor in the 8% annual currency debasement that runs on top of measured inflation. If you hold stocks, the picture is mixed. Defense contractors are having the best year in decades. Energy companies are printing money at $100 a barrel. But the broader market is under pressure from rising oil costs, rising inflation expectations, and the possibility that the Fed holds rates higher for longer. Recession risk is climbing. Oxford Economics says a mild global recession is likely if this continues through April. If you hold bonds, rising inflation erodes the real value of your fixed income payments. Bonds pay a set amount. If inflation runs at 5% and your bond yields 4%, you are losing purchasing power every year you hold it. And if you hold Bitcoin, you are holding the one asset in this entire equation that cannot be printed, inflated, debased, or expanded by any government, any central bank, or any war. 21 million coins, fixed forever. In a world where a 21-mile strait can trigger a chain reaction that forces the most powerful country on Earth to print hundreds of billions of dollars it does not have, an asset with a fixed supply is not a gamble. It is a lifeboat. Bitcoin is trading around $71,000 right now. It dropped just 2% after the peace talks collapsed and the blockade was announced. Compare that to the double-digit crash when the war first started in February. The market is hardening. The sellers are exhausted. Institutional money keeps coming in. BlackRock's IBIT pulled in $358 million in a single day last week. During a war, during a blockade, during extreme fear, every crisis in modern American history has ended the same way. More money printed, more currency debased, more purchasing power transferred from people who hold cash to people who hold scarce assets. The Iraq War, the War on Terror, the 2008 financial crisis, COVID, and now Iran. The oil shock is about to hit America. It has already been set in motion. The strait is closed, the supply is locked, the tankers are gone, the refineries are cold, the LNG facility is destroyed. And even if peace broke out tonight, the shockwave takes 4 months to arrive, 4 months to peak, and years to fully resolve. Nobody is ready for what comes next. But now you know it is coming, and what you do with that knowledge in the next few weeks could define your financial position for the next decade. If this video changed how you see this war and your money, subscribe, hit like, and drop a comment. Is the oil shock going to trigger a recession, Or will the money printer save the markets again? We read every single comment. We will see you in the next one.